All right, what's up? We are at the 83rd installment of the Unplugged Alpha podcast series. It is a wonderful night. I had a great Easter. Got a lot of sun this weekend, and we're talking about money on this one. So, over on my Instagram, the link to it is somewhere in the about page of my channel. There's this new broadcast channel they let you set up, and I was running a couple polls, and it seems there's a lot of interest in some topics around money, so I'm creating a 3-part series on that topic for you guys. Some of you may not know this, but in my prior life I ran Canada's most successful debt settlement company. It's still around today. It's been running for about 20 years this year. I started in 2003. How about that? Anyway, I did a exit with my brother. He pretty much took over. We still do some work together, and the business still runs. It's eliminated, I don't know, last time I checked, it was like $120 million worth of credit card debt. Very, very effective process for getting rid of debt. So this is kind of my wheelhouse. I'm one of those guys that knows things about stuff, and I don't always talk about things about stuff that I know about. And I got started in credit and collections probably around 1992 or 3. I was living in England for a few months in my early 20s. Didn't want to stay there. Decided to come back to Canada. A friend of mine said, "Oh, this place is hiring and you get to wear a suit to work." I thought, "Oh, that would be cool." I was 22, 23 years old at the time. I was probably about 22 actually. And I went for the interview. They hired me. It was a collection agency. First day on the job, was he Slovakian? I can't remember. Georgievic was his last name. I think he might have been Croatian. Anyway, this guy behind me just screaming, like spit is hitting me in the back of the head. His buddy yelling. That's just how they ran back then. So I've had a lot of exposure to that industry, dealing with the creditors, dealing with every aspect of that work. Before I get into the credit aspect of this podcast show, I want to talk about the origin of money in this series. So in this one, we're covering the origin of money and credit. In the next one, we'll talk about investing. And I think the other popular topic was making bank. It seemed to be what you guys wanted most of the information around. Now, if you're not on my TUA broadcast channel, just go to my Instagram. It's _unplugged_alpha. So yeah, you guys wanted top interested topics for how to invest money, how to become rich, how credit works, borrowing money, and what money is. So I'm going to combine a bunch of these. There'll be time for call-ins tonight. So I'll drop the link, pin it in the YouTubes. If you have any questions, you guys can just drop them in the chat or super chat them. Let's get started. So the origin of money. It's pretty simple to explain, actually. We've been operating as nomadic hunter-gatherers for a very long time on this planet. And commerce, that is exchange of goods and services, it's probably relatively new. The advent of agriculture, roughly 10,000, 11,000 years ago, depending on who you ask. But let's say it's, 10,000 years ago, played a big part in the creation of money. So what money is, all that money really is at the end of the day, I don't even have my wallet here to bust out a bill, but you know what a $20 bill looks like. All that paper money is a store of value. I want you to understand something. The only reason why $20 has $20 worth of buying power today, and I'm talking about the US dollars, so the greenback. The only reason why it has $20 worth of buying power today is because people universally agree that it has $20 worth of buying power today. You give a $20 bill to an alien, to a crow, to any other animal on the planet, it's absolutely useless to them. They wouldn't even know how to wipe their ass with it. It has no meaning to them. It has no bearing. It's only humans that it has some sort of exchange of value to it. Now, the reason why money was created was to store value. So let me paint a picture for you. Let's go back in a time machine 10, 11, 12,000 years ago. And people were operating and shifting into their little tribes, right? And there was a guy that was maybe good with goats. There might have been another guy that was getting into blacksmithing. There might have been another guy that just started into agriculture and he was farming wheat or something like that. And some of those items are perishable. If you're a blacksmith and you're making horseshoes for horses, horseshoes are pretty durable. You know, you can buy a horseshoe and leave it on a shelf and it's good for a long period of time. Doesn't degrade. It might rust over time if it's exposed to certain elements, but at the end of the day, it's very durable. Other things that are perishable, let's say wheat, you harvest wheat, it's perishable after a certain period of time if it's not stored properly, if it's not made into bread or other goods, for example, and that value diminishes rather quickly. So they had a problem. Animals die too, obviously. You know, they can get sick. You know, so they had a problem. You know, there's certain things that people wanted from others that were perishable, and there's certain things that were durable. So they needed to figure out a way to store that value in something, because maybe when the guy needed horseshoes that was growing the wheat, didn't have wheat to trade because it wasn't ready to be harvested for another 3 or 4 weeks or something like that. He didn't have any means or ability to go and buy horseshoes for his plow horses, let's say. Just making up this story, but just sort of give you an example. So they had to figure out a way to store value in something. Throughout history, they've stored value in seashells, gold, obviously, you know, precious metals, gold and silver, copper, you know, stuff like that. They've stored value in tulips, even at one point. I thought that was, you know, a good store of value. And then all of that, you know, pivoted and shifted over time into things like, you know, paper money and credit. And, you know, now we have digital currency like Bitcoin and stuff like that today. So the long story is rather long, and I'm not going to get into it to, you know, bore you, but that's essentially what money is. It's just a store of value. So whenever you come across somebody that's got a lot of money, they didn't steal it from people, generally speaking, you know, for the most part. If they've acquired a lot of wealth, then they've stored a lot of value in money, which means they've provided a lot of value to other people, right? The reason why Elon Musk is the richest guy in the world is because he's assumed the NASA contracts that the space shuttle used to do. And he's throwing satellites into orbit like it's going out of style. He's got I think the heaviest lift rocket that's ever been built, you know, in history. He makes electric cars, solar panels. Like, dude's up to some good, right? So, you know, he's created some value in the world for people, and he stored that value in money. That's all that money is. Now, money's got a lot of messed up properties, if we're being honest, you know, because the way the government can print unlimited quantities of it. And I'm not gonna propose that I'm smart enough to break down all of these things in simple terms for you guys. I'd suggest watching YouTubers like George Gammon. I like to have him on every few months on my main channel, just to sort of chop it up and catch up what's going on with the economy. But that's essentially, you know, the long and short of it. That is what the history of money is. Jack, that's an interesting super chat. How many times did you fail before $1 million? I don't know. All of my life until I got the $1 million, I would say. Early 30s, something like that. You're going to fail a lot more times than you win, you know, when it comes to making money and creating wealth. But we'll save the creating wealth one for another episode of the Unplugged Alpha. That'll probably be number 2 or number 3. So you can keep an eye out for that one later on. Anyway, welcome to the new channel members, guys. Appreciate you joining, supporting the channel, and all that good stuff. So the other parts of the show that I wanted to spend some time on is around credit, because that's the main way today that people are using money, the masses, you know, if you will. And again, I started out in the credit and collection industry. I left that in 2003. I think it was 2003. It was the start of 2003. I started my business February 8th, 2003 is when I incorporated it. I know that. And I took a package and I went home in November of 2002. And I talked about that part in my book, The Unplugged Alpha. If you guys are new to the channel, get the book. It's on Amazon. There's an Audible version that I narrated. The book's also getting updated too, by the way. There's going to be a first edition update out later on this year. And there'll be a special announcement with what's going to follow after that. And then there's a second book coming out towards the end of the year. That's going to fill in a lot of the stuff that should have gone in the first book. Anyway, back to the credit stuff. So 2003 kicked off total debt freedom. You can go find the website, totaldebtfreedom.ca. If you're in Canada and you have about 15 grand worth of credit card debt and what you're doing isn't working, it's worth checking out. It's a very effective program. And in my opinion, it's better for most people that want to avoid things like bankruptcy or stupid plans like credit counseling. The credit and collection industry is fascinating. Like, I know it like the back of my hand. There's probably been some modern updates to it that I'm somewhat out of touch with in the last couple of years. But I could certainly, get my brother on a show or just pick up the phone and call him and, get some clarity on something that might have a modern update. But it is a messed up world, the way that credit works. Okay. So I want to spend some time on this because credit today, let me just get the total debt service ratio of what's happening right now. Total debt service ratio. We'll just use it in the US because I know that most of you guys watching are in the States. Debt servicing ratio in the US. We don't want that. No, they have a different name for it now. We used to call it something else back in those days. I'll pull it up after I'm finished my notes over here. Anyway, so the history of credit goes back to 1950. It's a rather new phenomenon. Okay. The good news is all this credit has fueled massive amounts of growth in the economy. But the bad news is it's come at a cost. And I saw it firsthand. Like I said, I did credit and collections from about 1991 up to about 2002. It comes at a cost. A lot of people have a lot of credit card debt. And the thing about credit card debt and credit itself, and I'm going to deal mostly with credit cards, in this show, although a lot of this is applicable to things like, credit that you may borrow for mortgage or for a business loan and stuff like that. But credit card debt seems to have the most issues, if I can put it that way. So currently, and I've got a few notes here that I took down before I created the show earlier, 470 billion card transactions happen per year. That's on the Earth, the entire planet. 470 billion credit card transactions per year. But to put that in perspective, there are less stars in the Milky Way than there are credit card transactions in a year. The average American has 2 credit cards, which I think is probably a little bit low. I think this data is a few years old now. I've got at least 3 or 4, I think. So 2 sounds a little bit on a low side. There is currently 930 billion in credit card debt in the US right now. And let's just put that in perspective. I don't even know if my calculator will go up that high. What's the population of the US right now? Use a damn phone. It's probably easier than typing it out. I can do it with one hand. What's the population of the United States?
In 2021.
So 331 million. Okay, be quiet. Yeah, this isn't going to work on this calculator. I don't have enough zeros. Anyway, the numbers are astronomical. That is a lot of debt per person. Let's see if I can do it on the Google calculator here. Okay. Come on, calculator, work with me. Yeah, we're talking 28,000 per head. So 1950, we went from a cash-only economy. In some places, there was layaway. That was where you would go to a store. My granddad used to tell me the story. He wanted to go get like a sweater or something like that. You go to the store at Marks and Spencer in the UK, put down a quid, go back the next week when you got your next paycheck, or 2 weeks when your next paycheck came in, put another quid down. And in a few weeks, when you paid it off, whatever, 4 or 5 quid at the time, they would take the sweater home, sort of thing. In 1950, it changed with the Diners Club card. This guy, Frank McNamara, was the guy that invented the first credit card. Apparently, he was at a restaurant and forgot his wallet and saw a need. He was a marketer, as a businessman, and he saw a need for a credit issuing card. So in 1950, Diners Club card was invented. That's probably one of the oldest credit cards. Well, it is the oldest credit card, but he built it around specifically restaurants, hotels, and rental car companies were the first establishments to accept the Diners Club card. In 1958, so 8 years later, the financial institutions caught wind of this because so many of these Diners Clubs cards were getting moved around. They saw an opportunity to make some money. The average interest rate on a credit card, according to the stats that I pulled, says 16%. That seems a little bit low in my estimation. I think the data is probably stopping around 2020. So we're 2023 right now. Inflation's high. Interest rates are higher. The rate of inflation is rather high as well, too. I would estimate the average interest rate on a credit card today is probably into the 20%. 28.8% is very common on retail store cards here in Canada anyway. So if you go to Walmart, Canadian Tire, Best Buy, Home Depot, any of those major big box store chains, I'll get to all these Superchats in a second, by the way, your interest rate is going to be about 28.8%. When you start going into the higher risk loan areas where the bank won't issue the credit to you in a line of credit, stuff like that, 35, 38%. I think the usury cost of borrowing is still just under 60% in Canada, so 59.9%. Payday loan companies start to push into those types of territories. So I don't trust the 16% that I saw here, because even when I was running my debt business, the average consumer that was struggling with credit card debt had quite a few 28.8% interest credit cards. So some of these digits here that I'm looking at seem a little bit low in my experience. 1958, Bank of America. So at that time, this is interesting, 1 in 5 never paid back the credit card balance that they were issued, right? They started with a small target demographic, and I think it was Fresno, California. Then they went to the entire state, and then they went nationwide. But Bank of America lost $9 million. This is in 1958, by the way, issuing these cards because 1 in 5 people weren't paying them back. Credit cards make money, by the way, usually with an annual fee and a merchant fee for the transaction. Merchant fees are usually a small percentage. Some of the credit cards, like Amex, for example, tend to have the higher merchant fees, 2, 3, 4, 5% maybe. The other credit cards are usually like 1 and change. Again, it all depends, but that's how they're making their money. They're also making most of their money now off of the interest rates. And something that I found interesting, I was one of those guys that when I was running my credit card debt relief business, I would start going down these different rabbit holes, because there was a lobbying effort that I had to do for 2 years on Bill C-55, I think it was called at the time, around 2011. For those of you that are Canadian, Jagmeet Singh was a critic on it, and I sat across the table from him many, many times. Wasn't impressed with any of the politicians that I dealt with. All a bunch of garbage humans, to be truthfully and honest at the end of the day. But I did a lot when it came to infusing myself in the very fabric and the veins of credit issuing practices. They're predatory in my estimation. They would strategically issue credit cards to the youth because they knew that you give a 21-year-old a credit card versus giving a 61-year-old a credit card, The 21-year-old is probably going to be more irresponsible with it because we don't love delayed gratification anymore. We like instant gratification. And because the interest rates are so high, they can have that 21-year-old on the hook for the rest of their life paying interest versus a 61-year-old, which has a much shorter lifespan. So a lot of the marketing strategies that seem to target more of the youth. This is in the 90s and 2000s, and time after that. This isn't what was happening in 1958. They were legitimately just passing out credit cards because they saw it as a good opportunity to increase profit margins. Credit cards were then introduced in Europe, starting in London by Barclays Bank in 1966, but it was marketed as a status symbol to the super rich. So the English have a different approach to credit card debt. So for example, in 2019 in the US, there's $930 billion worth of credit card debt outstanding, but the United Kingdom has less than $100 billion in credit card debt. Granted, it's a smaller country, but proportionately, it doesn't align with the amount of debt that's outstanding. I always found it interesting, how cheap the English were always considered. They were always mocked for being. They used to call them stingy. The Europeans that would come and visit the English or in England, or to immigrate into England, especially if the women started dating the men, they used to mock them and call them stingy and stuff like that because they wouldn't spend a lot of money. They wouldn't turn on the heat in the house. So in the United Kingdom, they have a different philosophy when it comes to money. It's considered over there shameful to have debt to some degree. And I think it seems to translate into today's world because clearly the amount of debt that's outstanding over there is a lot less than what it is in the United States. Getting back to my notes over here. Another thing I found interesting was that studies have shown that so if you have the choice between pulling cash or your debit card out and buying with what's in your bank account, or buying on credit and paying it back in 30 days, you'll spend up to 100% more than paying with cash if you use credit. McDonald's studied this very, very closely, and they determined that 55% more was spent at their restaurants when people were encouraged to use credit cards over cash. So like the psychology of people using credit is insane. MIT did a study that showed there's a massive release in dopamine when buying things with credit versus cash. Interesting that is, eh? Tonight's beverage is it's a bone broth. I'm trying to increase my protein intake, so probably about 15 to 18 grams of protein in the bone broth, but it actually tastes pretty good. It's like a chicken spicy Thai sort of bone broth. You mixing some beef broth in there. It's good stuff. Anyway, so that's a little bit of the history of credit card debt. By the way, China. So the United States has $930 billion worth of debt as of 2019. In 2019, China has $1.23 trillion worth of credit card debt. Russia started issuing credit cards, looks like in the 70s. They're used worldwide. Let's just call it what it is. They're used worldwide. They're a very, very effective tool. Now, going back to what I was talking about earlier, I was one of those guys that would, I would deal with a lobbying effort. I would deal with the creditors. I would deal with the collection agency. I would audit calls. And I also did it on the other side of the spectrum when I was running my credit card debt relief company, because rather than dealing with credit card companies or student loans or car loans or sundry items, they collect on everything in collection agencies. One of the items that was highly contested or like seriously problematic for the banks at one point, I don't know if it still is today, if they still allow it or not, but they used to have these sundry items. And what this was is that, when you go to an ATM and you put your paycheck in an envelope and you put it in the bank, and then you could make a withdrawal for, let's say that check was for $1,000 and you wanted to pull out $200 or $300, you could go and do that. I've never done that before, but that was done a lot by people, except for what they would do is they put empty envelopes into the ATM, and then they would make a withdrawal. So they never actually deposited a check, or they would put in a fake check or an unsigned check or just a piece of paper sometimes in the envelope, because the envelopes had these little holes. So there was readers in the machine that would try to like pick up that there was something in the envelope. So they try to counter it with that. So there's all this like counter push pull that's done with credit card companies and credit issuers. And at the end of the day, it never really seems to cost them any money, does it? Right? Like you never see these big banks go out of business over credit cards. And there's a reason for that. It's because they're highly profitable. They make more money. I'm trying to get the exact numbers, but I think it was like low 30%. Like they make about a third of their money off credit card penalty payments. So interest. So if you turn over your credit card statement, I don't even get printed statements anymore. Actually, hang on a sec. Maybe I have one over here. But if you turn over your credit card statement, and you look at the back of it, no, these are all banking. On the back of it, there's a section that reads how we apply your payments, and the sequence in which the people that you owe apply your payments to the balance that you owe outstanding goes to interest, penalties, late fees, if there's cash advance charges. So they've got all these penalties and fees, and then they hit that first. And then before it goes to your principal, they take care of any of those outstanding issues. Then it goes to your principal. And then when it's going to your principal, it's after you're paying, like most credit cards are 19 to 23% here anyway. Retail cards, like I said, they're about 29%, and other cards are about 35% or higher. So most of it does go to interest. We used to do calculations with people, like the way that we would pitch our debt settlement business as a bit of an insider. And by the way, you can read all about all of this. I have a book on Amazon. It's like less than $10. I wrote it like 11 or 12 years ago. Just go to Amazon and search for Richard Cooper DIY debt settlement guide. And I talk specifically about how all of this stuff works and how debt settled and what options are and all that sort of stuff. It's applicable worldwide. Some people say, "Oh, this only works in Canada. Rich, this isn't going to work." It works everywhere. Okay, like I've had people in Europe and other places in the world tell me, yeah, they can settle debt anywhere. So it works. Okay, like trust me, I know what I'm talking about with this stuff. So they're essentially engineered to keep you in debt. They are tools of finance companies or financial instruments that are designed to make you make monthly payments for pretty much the rest of your life. We would run these calculators. Like the average customer that we would enroll would have something like $32,000 worth of debt. We wouldn't deal with people with less than 15,000 because it didn't make any sense. It would cost us money to do the work. So generally in those situations, people were either recommended to go file for bankruptcy, or if they had strong enough cash flow, just to pay it off in like a snowball effect, like these other debt consolidators or like the Dave Ramseys of the world. Be a man and wife her up and pay your bills in a snowball method or whatever is the avalanche method. I'm not a big fan of that guy. He's a bit of a dork and he gets a lot of things wrong, and he really doesn't know what he's talking about when it comes to stuff like credit and debt settlement, to be honest with you. Anyway, so they would come in with like $32,000 worth of debt, and we would take a look at it based on their plan. We would call it their plan. And the average time it would take somebody to pay that back would amount to, on average, I think it was about 35 to 38 years following their plan. Okay. And again, their plan is to encourage minimum monthly payments. So at the bottom of statements, it'll say, your balance is $3,000, your minimum payment is $83.12, and it's due on this date. A lot of people just make the minimum monthly payment. They're not thinking about the consequences or the cost of paying all that interest, because there's nowhere on a statement that will tell you exactly how much you'll pay over what period of time if you follow their plan. There's some updates done in the legislation here in Canada anyway that made some changes to improve that, to try to make it a little more transparent. But the truth of the matter is, on their plan, the $32,000 would take an average like just under 40 years to pay that off. making the installments that they were doing. And it was really easy to identify it because when you're talking to the customer, you'd be like, hey, have you seen the balances come down in the last 12 months? Not really. It's been the same, hasn't moved that much in the last 12 months. Okay, well, when we would punch out the numbers and see what we could do with our settlement strategy, they'd be out of debt in like 4 to 5 years for something like 60 to 75% of what they owe, everything included. Okay. So for every dollar that's owed, they pay like 75 cents back, let's say max. It's pretty compelling, right? And the credit card companies, the financial institutions, they've kicked and screamed about people finding alternative ways to get out of debt. They don't like it. They don't like it when people do it themselves. They don't like it when they hire others to do it. They want people in debt. They want to keep you under their thumb on you, making payments for as long as you possibly can. If you're 21 years old, take as much credit as you can get, pay it off whenever you feel like it. Just follow the plan, right? All right. Let me get to some of these super chats here so we can do some live call-ins in a second. Pursue a career in law enforcement. Rajan, I'm going to invite you to go look at I think it's a Playing to Win podcast somewhere on YouTube. So around the time when things were burning in the United States, when Trump was president and there was a George Floyd issue and cops were hated, I brought on a panel. There was about 8 cops on the panel. I think maybe something like 6 to 8 cops. There's a number of them on the panel. I just put it on social media. I said, hey guys, I want to do a show with law enforcement. Is anybody available to hop in? I got a bunch of DMs and I brought all these guys in and they're all cops. They, for the most part, stayed anonymous. I think one guy was retired and he didn't really care. But overwhelmingly, most police officers discourage any man today from entering into law enforcement. Go watch the video for details. Again, just look it up. Just look up, Rich Cooper podcasts, law enforcement. Is it worth it? Or something like that. You'll probably find it. And the TLDR version is you're going to be hated by everybody. You're going to be mistreated by everybody. The compensation you get isn't worth it. People will abuse you. People get hurt. Cops die. It's just not worth it. It's not a good job anymore. That may have improved since I did that podcast a few years ago, since things have cooled down a bit. I don't really see it. All right. I'm always very respectful to law enforcement whenever I have to deal with it. Whenever I have to deal with it, it's usually because I drive fast cars and things happen when you drive fast cars. So I'm always very respectful and polite and courteous. But at the same time, I would not, even if you offered to pay me $500,000 a year, $1 million a year to be a cop, I wouldn't do it. I just wouldn't do it. Philip says, hey, Rich, at what point in forming an LTR should the desire to not get married be expressed by the guy? I feel like he's cutting himself from a large swath of dating pool. Thanks. I wouldn't announce it unless it's brought up. I mean, not all women want to get married, right? A lot of today's modern women, like the boss girls, they think that you should sign a prenup with them. They think things like, why do I need a man? I don't need no man. So why even bring it up? If you don't have any intention of getting married, think this through for a second. You have a dating app, you put in your dating app, 0 chance of getting married. Or on your first date, you say, look, I have no interest in getting married. And if that's on their agenda, you're going to have a hard time dating, right? It's a numbers game. So if you want to improve, your exposure, pretty much every chick that I dated after I got divorced, not every, but a lot of them were all about, I want to get married. I want to get married. They'd see me. I'm in good shape. I got lots of money. I'm influential, all that stuff. They'd see me and they'd start poking at me and start talking about marriage at some point. I'd just be like, no, I don't see any benefit to it. Sell me on it. What's the benefit? Right. Or if you're around other people and they, hey, when are you going to wife her up? She's a good girl, sort of thing. It's like, You tell me what the benefit is. You sell me on the benefit, right? They can't. There's no sales pitch. They just start stuttering, right? So bring it, like, discuss it when they want to discuss it. If they want to discuss it, is the way that I would put it. Thoughts on opening a gym? Is it ELF? No, it's not an ELF business. Easy, lucrative, and fun is what the acronym is. Joe Polish brought this up years ago in his I Love Marketing podcast. Loved it, which is why I've talked about it. The School of Entrepreneurship course, by the way, it opens later on this month. I'm gonna kick it open the 1st of May. Where's my banner for my email? So get on my email list below. The ticker's down there is entrepreneursincars.com/red-flags. I'm going to have a special offer on the kickoff day when the course opens for enrollment. Nice little discount for people on my email list, paid in crypto. Okay. Going to make that clear. But no, anything that so in my estimation, when you're dealing with a physical establishment, like what happened during the last scamdemic of 2019, right? It wasn't too long ago that you couldn't sit down in a restaurant, that my gym was closed. They shut down the gym. And when they opened it up, you only had an hour to work out. You had to stand on dots outside like a fucking idiot. Half the facilities on the inside weren't even working. You couldn't use the sauna. The showers were closed down. You had to walk around with a spray bottle and a cloth and wipe shit down. Like, a lot of people just stopped going, right? It was around that time that I found a guy with a private facility and I started training there. And I also bought my own gym equipment, right? Like, I found a guy on, I think it was Facebook Marketplace, who was a welder, and he built me a squat rack. And I just went and picked it up, put it in my basement, ordered some weights and bars and shit. Like, the problem with a physical location is they can shut it down. You can't, if you don't like where you live, like if the country you're living in sucks or it's going south and policies are changing and they're going in a direction that you don't agree with, are you going to pick up your gym and move it to the next country? No. You want, generally speaking, if you want a business that's easy and fun to run, you don't want to be anchored to a location. You want to pick up and be able to go to the next location. When you're anchored to a country or to a region, demographic, whatever it happens to be, because of a physical business, you're dealing with whatever bullshit they want to throw at you. Quite a few of my friends during the scamdemic just said, I'm out. These lockdowns suck. That, they lived in parts of the world where they were locked down. They were forced to wear masks. People that were employees were forced to get experimental jabs. They had no idea, if they were safe or not. They were lied to, for the most part. We found out over time that they've been neither safe nor effective. When you're stuck in a physical location, then you are at their mercy. And I don't think that that's a good business. So opening a gym, in my estimation, do it if you like, if that's your thing, but keep in mind, physical rent, space, insurance, E&O, slip and fall people, employees. You don't need many of those things to run a highly profitable business. It's not ELF at all. Well, you guys have a lot of law enforcement. Did I get this one? LTR, Jim. Yeah, okay. So we're doing Dave Ramsey. And I don't like Dave Ramsey. The guy's a muppet, in my opinion. I've watched enough of his call-in shows. Like, his strategy basically is the debt snowball, the debt avalanche, and that's fine. Okay. If that's the approach you want to take, you want to, drink his Kool-Aid and get drunk on it and be a man and, marry that war pig. Like, there's a video somewhere on my other channel where this guy calls in and he's like, I've been living with my girlfriend for a while and, we've got a bunch of this debt and I've been working on your method. Dude hasn't paid off his debt in the years that he's been following this stupid method because it really doesn't work. Then Ramsey's advice to the guy is, well, why are you playing house? You got to marry this girl up. You got to do the right thing and be a man. And this girl she's total disgusting train wreck the way that he described it, right? Like not even close to being remote marriage material, let alone, like anybody that's going to add any value to his life. Didn't work, didn't do anything useful, completely out of shape, so obese she was in one of those stroller chairs. Don't even get me started on this guy. Look, if you have credit card debt, in my view, look, just get my book, DIY Debt Settlement. Search it on Amazon, Rich Cooper, DIY Debt Settlement. It's less than $10. I don't have print or Audible. It's Kindle only, but you can get Kindle readers for any device now, so you can read it anywhere. So there's no excuse. I break down all the debt elimination methods. There's debt consolidation, there's bankruptcy, there's credit counseling, there's the debt snowball methods or the avalanches or whatever it is that he wants to call them. They all do something to some degree, but they're mostly ineffective. They just don't work. The only two methods that I endorse is bankruptcy or debt settlement, or if you have the means to pay it off quickly, because you can throw lots of money at it and just pay it off, right? But bankruptcy is for people without any assets or very low assets on their balance sheet. You got 100 grand worth of unsecured debt and you got 20 grand worth of assets. Most of it you can generally keep with insolvency law. I don't know what the law is like in the United States, but most of it you can generally keep. You can keep a car. I don't know what the numbers are today, but back in the day when I knew them, you could keep a car worth up to $5,500. If you had tools of the trade, like a snap-on tool chest, because you're an auto mechanic or you're a welder or you're a plumber or somebody, tools of trade you could keep, right? So most stuff you would generally end up keeping anyway. And you get rid of the debt because you have no assets, right? Like the bankruptcy route works. If you've got assets and you don't want to invite creditors into your life, because basically when you file for bankruptcy, you're giving assets and liabilities to a bankruptcy trustee, and then you're paying that guy to give as much money back to your creditors as possible that's written in the legislation. With the debt settlement strategy, you have a lot more privacy, a lot more control. It doesn't do nearly as much damage to your credit. And if you have assets, there's ways to deal with that. So look, I get he's popular. I'm never going to be that, that popular guy that, sells you on the Ramsey or who's the other nerd? Susie Orman. I've seen all their shows. Don't. Look, if you guys are following me and you like my stuff, that's all I'm going to say. Just go read my book, The DIY Debt Settlement Guide. Cavalier, 25-year-old, worked as sales engineer for 6 months, lost job, took new job this month as an engineer, but want to go back to sales engineer. Is it bad to job hop if I find a great SE job remote? I know I can excel. SE, okay, chase dreams are waiting. So here's the thing about, really the questions about, switching jobs very quickly. Let me get the link for you guys to call into. Copy. All right, so join and ask. Don't worry, I'm going to finish your super chats first. Get this link up here so you guys can queue in and keep it on the topic of money. Okay, let's not get into chasing the girls. Keep it on the topic of money, please. So I'll pin that at the top of the YouTubes. So his questions about switching jobs. So on that notion, I'm going to use women as an example. So on that notion, if you're dealing with a chick that you're entertaining to invite into your life, whether that's long-term relationship, to have children with, whatever it happens to be, if you're dealing with a chick that you're contemplating entering into your life, but you see that she's been with a lot of guys in her past, a lot of notches, she's not a good prospect, is she? Why? Because women that have been with 50, 100 guys, a lot of dudes, I mean, the numbers after about 2 look pretty bad, to be honest with you, based on the Teachman study, but just going to use a bigger number. They're bad prospects for a long-term relationship. It's the same thing as an employer. Like when I was an employer and I'm looking at resumes and job applications, if I saw guys bouncing around a lot, they're going to do the same thing to me. Why would I want to invest my time, effort, energy, and resources in somebody that's probably not going to be there in 6 months' time because they run off to the next job or they go on workman's comp, or they pretend like they're sick, or whatever, like fill in a blank. That's one of the reasons. And again, when you're on my email list, you're going to start to see some of the notions that I talk about with business ideas, where you want to generally try to stay away from having companies or running a business where you have employees, because employees are a pain in the ass, right? They're going to leave the job. They're going to go to whatever's best for them. That's how men treat jobs, right? It's like, oh, that guy offers me more money, I'll probably go over there. But you have to keep in mind, it doesn't look good on your resume. There's a lot of people that I looked at as candidates that had a lot of job history, okay? And I would just pass on them because there was people that didn't have that problem. I'd rather deal with somebody that I knew was coachable and workable and had the skills than somebody that had worked, 10 jobs in the last 2 or 3 years. They're just bad prospects. Cavalier. Oh, this is a follow-up to that. Okay. 62 grand in engineering. I think I could make more in SE. I don't know what SE is. I got chem degree last year. Not sure I could keep my head down for a year, jump in my passion, sales and engineering if I get an offer. Look, man, whatever you do, don't demonstrate on your resume that you're unreliable and that you bounce very quickly from job to job to job. Employers don't like that. It's very simple. I'm prepared to tell you how you can get Andrew Tate to help you sell 500,000 to over 1 million copies of your book via his Twitter account. Okay. Going to YouTube, I have similar. This guy's Rich. I tried going to YouTube to watch the show, but I can't find it. It's similar. Okay, it's real simple here. Let me grab the link. So this is the YouTube link that I'm putting in all the chats. So this, if you're on Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, that's the YouTube watch link. The ask a question link is there. You can hit the StreamYard link. Did I pin it at the top? Yeah, it's pinned at the top. So bring your questions. I'm going to run the ad reel, take a little bit of a break, and then we'll continue with some call-in Q&A stuff and see what you guys got for me today, okay? This episode is brought to you by the Unplugged Alpha Supplements and Grondike Soap Company. Brothers, if you're like me and you take what you put in your body seriously, you'll want to use the Unplugged Alpha Supplements. An obsession with absorption is what sets this line apart from the others. You want to make sure that you absorb as much of the supplements as possible so you don't end up peeing out expensive urine. My supplement line is made in the United States from the highest quality domestic ingredients. And unlike cheaper supplements from China in plastic bottles, mine ship in dark glass bottles to keep your supplements fresher, longer, and won't seep endocrine disrupting plastics into your supplements. Nothing is a hard tablet. Everything is in an easily digestible, bioavailable capsule. You can filter all products by various categories, including testosterone support, estrogen metabolism, fat burning, immune health, sleep support, and performance. Visit theunpluggedalpha.com/shop and use the subscribe and save option to get 10% off your supplement orders, or use coupon code ALPHA10 for 10% off a one-time order to try it out. Then, I use Tactical Soap and God of War beard oil every day. Tactical Soap is a handmade product made in the United States from ingredients you can actually pronounce, not conventional endocrine-lowering toiletry chemicals. Both the soap and the beard oils are infused with bioidentical pheromones that are designed by a clinical psychologist and pheromone expert to maximize attractiveness to the opposite sex. Go visit coopersoap.com and get 10% off your order today. Guys, check out my website at richcooper.ca for more information on booking me for coaching, my community, my courses, and a whole bunch more. You can also find all the useful links pinned below in the top YouTube comment of all my videos. Now let's get on with the show. Okay. Sipping on that bone broth while that's running. Celebrate Superchat. That's new. YouTube has a brand new celebrate thing. That's new. Okay. Well, it looks like we got Greg Stevens here, who's the Andrew Tate fan to sell books. Let's see what he's got for us. Is this the same?
Hi, Rich.
Craig?
How you doing? Yes, it is.
All right. What do you got for me, man? What's this? What's the super chat about?
Well, good question. You do want to sell more of your books, I take it. I mean, you I don't know how many you've sold so far, but you need to get a lot of eyeballs on your advertisements to sell more, to sell up 500,000 or 1,000,000 copies. And Andrew Tate has the ability to do that for you. And there's a reason why he would do that,
Okay.
because he would owe you a favor.
Okay.
So, he's under house arrest, and he's very limited in what he can do in his actions.
Mm-hmm.
He has access to Twitter. I don't think he's putting a lot of other content out, because I think he probably has some pretty strong restrictions on what he can and can't say. So, what I think you could use your connections, because you've been doing this for over 10 years, and you have actually interviewed the guy before, so you may be able to reach out and contact him, and then you could have him put out a tweet calling for his followers to a call to action. So
look, I get what you're saying, but I don't run that way, dude. Like, I can message Andrew right now on WhatsApp and he'll respond.
Okay.
Is Jewel, the sartorial shooter?
I've seen some videos of him recently. Yes,
he's the tall Australian guy that runs in his crew. We chat. I helped him out with stuff in his personal life. Look, when he says to me, "Hey, do me a favor. I'd like to, hop on a podcast to talk about what Andrew can't talk about right now." I don't say, I'll do that if you put a tweet out selling my book. I just don't care. I do it because I find it interesting. Like, I'm not in that economy where it's like, well, if I scratch your back, then you scratch mine. It's like, I'll scratch your back. I like what you're doing. I want to have a conversation with you. Tell me what's going on. Tell me about Islam. Why do you live in Dubai, sort of thing. And, let's, if there's stuff that they want to get out about what's happened with Andrew since he's been out of jail, I'm happy to talk about that too. But I'm not going to be like, I'll only do that if you talk about my book or put out a tweet, right?
Okay, that's fine.
That's just how I am, though.
There are other reasons why he would want to do that.
Andrew's a self-promoter. He's not the kind of guy that's going to promote other people's stuff, right?
That's exactly right. But the thing about I think that people don't understand about Tate is that he talks like a revolutionary, but he's more of an entrepreneur, right? He's promoting his own ideas and directing people to his university, his Hustlers University, to make money.
Are you a part of his Hustlers University?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is that if he was an actual revolutionary, then he would have a superpower. He has all these followers that he could influence with a call to action. And what this call to action would be to get his followers to donate one book to their school's library in order to create a personal development and young entrepreneurs library in each school that his followers attend. Okay. So,
well,
and then
look, man, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but I've got it under control, man. Do you have any other questions or anything around the topic of money tonight?
No, I figured as an entrepreneur, you'd be interested in hearing more about that.
Trust me, I'm doing just fine, but I appreciate the chime in though. Thanks, Craig. See you, buddy. All right, let's see what Liam's got for us over here. We got Liam, Josh, Jeff. Let me grab Liam over here. Liam, what's up, buddy? How you doing, young man?
Pretty good. I just have a quick question on your 1% community.
Yeah.
So I'll give you a little quick thing about me. So I'm only 17 years old. I got about 20,000 saved up right now. I'm just wondering if 1% community would be good for me to join.
No. There's a starters group called the 10%, and it's I think it's set up as a lifetime membership. So you pay, the entrance fee, you're in. It's a staging ground. Get to know some people. If there's a meetup, go out and meet some people, contribute, ask, give, wherever possible. Generally speaking, the guys that are more suitable for the 1%, they're guys that are a little more seasoned. They're generally 25, 30 years old, older. They're making at least six figures. They're not sitting around talking about happy wife, happy life sort of conversations, right? They get into more depth. So at your age, with where you're at, if you're looking for a community, if you want to surround yourself with guys doing stuff, then I would join the 10%. It's there's a link. Let me get the banner so I can give it to you guys on the screen just in case anybody else. It's just entrepreneursandcars.com/community. Just join that tier. I think it's $9.97, and you're ready to get started with that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, buddy. Take care. All right. Let's go over to Josh. Is that Josh? That's Josh. All right. Josh, you're up, buddy.
I had a question on the chat. I don't know if you saw.
Sorry, on
private chat.
Okay. It's in the private chat.
It says, "Why do some businesses have a cash only / card only?"
Why do businesses have a cash only, card only? Okay, what do you mean by card only?
Like in some places, like they only accept cash and some card.
Oh, or some specific card, like a MasterCard only.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's because certain cards have very high merchant fees, so they don't want to deal with them. I used to work in a stereo store when I was in my late teens, and even like back then, I think Amex was charging somewhere between 4 to 6%. It was really high. So we wouldn't even take Amex as a merchant payment processor. And if somebody came in and they wanted a deal on like a TV or, set of speakers or, something like that, we were always encouraged to ask them to pay with cash so we could get them a better deal to try to avoid the merchant fees. Because, you sell a $2,000 or $3,000 unit and you've got a 2% merchant fee. That's money out of their pocket. Like the owner of the company was so fastidious with money. He actually insisted that every single item that we sold, it was 99. It was like, $21.99. Even if it was $3,000, it was $3,000.99 because he wanted that extra. He called it a buck on every sale. So, like margins aren't that good in many businesses, especially in retail, especially in restaurants. So wherever margins aren't that good, they usually have a either cash only policy or they don't accept certain credit cards because the merchant fees are too high.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
What about like if you think about like drug dealers, so they always like expect you to pay with cash, don't they?
Well, drug dealers can't accept credit, can they?
Oh, yeah, because you don't want to get caught out.
I'm not sure I understand where you're going with this.
Like if Breaking Bad, like when you first see Tate, like when Jesse shows him the crystal meth, and Tuco gets a bag out of cash instead of like, oh, here's a bank transfer. Obviously, I don't know how it was like 2008.
Well, you're dealing with the underground, dude. Like anything underground is cash only business, right?
Yeah.
It's got to be untraceable. Yeah.
Yeah, because you can go on your bank and trace.
Yeah. Okay.
You have a look.
All right. Thanks, Josh. See ya. All right. Let's see here. Got Hanson. Hanson's waving his hand. You're trying to get my attention. Is that what you're doing?
Yes.
All right, man. What do you got for me?
Exactly what I'm trying to do.
Guys, if you want to call in tonight, the link is pinned in the description of the YouTube live chat. Okay. Sorry. Go ahead, Hanson.
Hello, Rich. Sorry for my English. I live in the Netherlands. My English is not the first language I speak, but I'll try my best. First of all, I want to thank you. I read your book. I bought like all the other books that you recommended. Not all of them, but it's a start. It's a start.
Okay.
On like health-wise, I really improved because of you. Like I got even the stainless steel bottle, the reverse osmosis, everything.
Yeah. Okay.
So I lost a lot of kilos. I do kickboxing, and your content really helped me, man. And even
welcome.
when there's a little bit sun, I go outside, get the vitamin D, and listen to your podcasts. And I got a question. I before I saw your content, I already chose to do a STEM job. And while I'm doing this STEM job, I know I should focus to do it, to learn programming, like software engineering, really good. But I just get, I really want to make money next to it, start a business, do something. But whenever I try to do something next to it, my school grades go down. So what would you do, like as a 20-year-old? I know I don't look 20, but
you're in school right now?
Yes, I'm in school right now. I study for software engineering in the Netherlands.
Okay.
And
So what's the plan? Like you want to go work for one of the FANG companies or?
I only want to work for, for knowledge. I don't want it for money. I rather start my own business and build something up. Like my dad always said, somebody that works for himself always earns more than somebody that works for somebody else. So,
Yeah.
I got that programmed in me. But yeah, while I'm studying, like it's really difficult to stay off like other things. What would you do as a 20-year-old? And whenever I make a little bit money, how would you spend your money? Like, would you do like spend it in crypto? Would you try to start a business next to it, or just focus on school and training and eating healthy?
So let's deal with percentages rather than the amount of money, because I think percentages are easy to work with, right? So for a guy your age, you should probably look, because you're 20, you got a lot of life ahead of you. You got more life ahead of you than I got ahead of me. Okay. I got less life ahead of me than I do behind me because I'm that old now. Right. So, I mean, the thing about guys your age is you can afford to make mistakes. You can afford to make money later. Like making money today, saving money today, at 20, it might make a little bit of sense. So I would dedicate a percentage of your income to that, maybe 10, 15, 20% max, whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
And within that, I would probably put a good chunk of that into crypto. I've said for years, Bitcoin, I don't like any of these dipshits out there that are pushing these shit coins that are probably never going to go anywhere. They're just trying to pump their own bag, so there's those problems. But I would invest a lot of the money into yourself in areas like you've already got a stack of books on your table. Read those books, right? Like if you're going to get into engineering, if you're going to get into programming, Hooked is a great book because it talks about how they engineer habit forming products. Right. Yeah, exactly. I had Dan Martell on my Playing to Win podcast
I saw
last
that.
week,
I saw that.
and he knows exactly how to engineer habit forming products, which is why he made reference to that book as well. So I would invest like with knowledge, read books, listen to audiobooks, listen to podcasts. Did you get my School of Entrepreneurship course?
No. I applied for the mail thing, but I didn't get it yet. But I definitely want to get it. So
yeah. So it'll be up at the end of the month. I think May 1st will be the launch date for it. And if you're on my email list, entrepreneursincars.com/red-flags, you can get the free chapter on red flags from my book if you haven't read it. And you can also get on my email list. That's where you'll get the best offer to buy my course. The course has everything that you need to. There's like 6 hours of material in there now. It's got lots and lots of material in there that explain what the best entrepreneurs do when they engineer their business versus what some of the more struggling type of entrepreneurs do. Like I've done both. I've run hard businesses that suck, and I've run, easy and lucrative and fun businesses that don't suck nearly as much.
Yeah,
so
that's so nice about you.
I've put all of that information into the course. So invest in yourself is what I'm saying, right? Read, watch documentaries, listen to audiobooks, if like go on Twitter and say, hey, I've got an Audible credit. What's a good book on, what are you interested in? Business, engineering, writing code, whatever it happens to be, and then go and listen to that thing next. That's where I would spend time, money, and resources at that age, because you're going to get your head squared away. Again, if your long-term plan is not to work for somebody and to create your own business, then understand what kind of business that you want to engineer then, right?
Yes. That's really important. And yeah, I thought like, while getting all the knowledge in, starting a business right now and getting the experience is like important too. But what you're saying right now, what I understood from it, like focus on learning, focus on investing in yourself, and the rest will come. Like,
yeah, that's it.
All right,
you're on the right path, my man.
Yes, Rich, by the way, I want to make you the guy that's my like accountability partner. I don't know how to say it, bro. Look at me now. Look, like fat. I'm fat. I'm not even gonna joke about it.
Okay.
6 months. I'm gonna be ready for a kickboxing match, and you're gonna see me in 6 months. Wait a second. I don't know.
You don't
if
need to
it's good
take
for
off
you,
your
but-
clothes. It's okay.
No, no, it's my clothes. Just like
Okay.
how I'm here, you know. But I won't do it. Maybe you get a ban or something like that. I don't want to cause that, you know.
All right. Do it, man.
Hey, Rich, thank you.
Show
Thank
me.
you a lot. I will.
Okay.
I'm gonna show you 6 months.
Okay,
I
man.
swear.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
All
Take
right.
care.
Thanks.
Ciao. All right. Dave, my brother, what's up, my man?
Rich, good to see you.
Good to see you again.
So I wanted to just, kind of chop it up a little bit about the difference between credit and debit transactions.
Yeah.
That a lot of folks don't really, I think, understand the difference between the two, and they're kind of key, right?
Mhm.
So when you're using a debit card, you're using essentially your bank's protections with your transactions in case it gets stolen and that kind of thing, and they'll protect up to a certain amount, and they may or may not refund a certain amount of your losses if somebody steals your card.
Mhm.
Whereas like Visa and MasterCard and those guys, they'll usually just say, yep, looks like bad transactions. Here's all your money back. Here's a new card. You're good to go.
Mhm.
Your banks don't protect you quite as well in that particular world. And there's also issues that you can run into, like, your credit card. They'll let you authorize up to however much in a given day, whereas your bank may have kind of a transaction limit, and you'll start bumping into that early. So you can spend a good chunk of money but not quite everything, and then go to the gas station and go to get authorized for I think they'll usually pull like $100 to $150 USD.
Mhm.
And if that goes above your transaction limit for the day, you won't be able to transact, and you might be walking home from the gas station there,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
I mean, at the end of the day, you want to work yourself into a position where credit doesn't matter, right? It's like,
Exactly.
you've got plenty of credit. You've got, multiple cards at work. You don't pay fees on the cards. You're using the cards. They don't use you. Like, when I travel,
Exactly.
I go to the VIP lounge, with my card. When I buy stuff with my card, I'm getting points to travel for free. When I buy stuff, I pay it off in full. When the bill comes, I'm not paying interest, right? Like,
Yeah.
Like, you've heard the term deadbeat before.
Mhm.
The real deadbeat aren't the guys that are in collections paying interest, penalties, and fees on all these financial instruments. The real deadbeats are guys like me, because they don't really make any money off guys like
Exactly.
me.
You might get transaction fees out of somebody like you,
Yeah.
but that's about it. And they don't like that. That
Yeah,
interest is way more
it
lucrative.
doesn't even cover the cost of the travel rewards. It doesn't cover the cost of the airport lounges that I sit in, eating and drinking their booze or whatever I'm doing when I'm in there. Like, it doesn't cover any of that stuff. So
Right.
when you're smart with credit and you don't really need it, then they're going to come after you, and they're going to want to offer you all these benefits and limits and perks and all this sort of stuff. It's just not a cool world. It's not sexy having debit cards, credit cards, and all these things. They can put plastic, gold, metal, whatever the hell they want in it, right? Like, they've got those Amex Centurion cards now, which are like the premium cards. There's probably something better than that today.
I
But
don't know. Iridium covered in snot or something.
yeah, like, have credit, for your convenience, but not for any other reason other than
Right.
that. And be a deadbeat like me, where you're not paying fees.
Right. It's a good idea if you can muster the discipline to use your credit card, but always keep it paid off, and just treat it more or less like your debit card. If you got to use your debit card, then kind of treat it like a debit card and actually run it as credit, because then you get the better protection through Visa and MasterCard as opposed to your bank. A lot of folks don't actually realize that.
What are the fees on the debit card transactions when you're buying?
Usually similar to what you'd pay on any regular credit card. They might be a little bit lower, 0.5% or.
Do they have
1%,
debit
depending.
cards with flat fees, if you keep a certain balance, or no fees if you keep a certain balance? They've got those too, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Credit unions, especially. I've got a couple different ones that are like that, where they basically just use it all you like, as long as you're banking through us, we're happy. Kind of thing.
Got it.
So
all right, cool, man. Thanks, Dave.
Yeah, good to chat.
See you, brother. By the way, while we're on the topic of credit, one of the things that I get asked that didn't pop up yet here in the show, if you want to have a good credit rating, it's actually very, very simple. One, never charge more than 50% of your limit. So if you have a credit card with a limit of $10,000, do not charge more than $5,000 on that. Some people will say you can go up to 75%, you can go up to whatever percent. Here's what ends up happening. When you start to approach your credit limit, then they have some sort of algorithm that fires off and says, oh, we have a credit risk situation here. Because most people don't know this, but if you exceed your limit, you're not responsible to pay what's over your limit. This might be different in other countries, but this is the way things were set up here. But your limit's 10 grand. And for some bizarre reason, they charge through to $11,000 or $12,000 or something like that. You're not technically liable for what's over your limit, right? So that's why they have those trigger warnings there in the algorithm. So never charge more than half of whatever your limit is. If you need to routinely charge for expenses, for travel, for whatever, your handling happens to be because you're a big baller, you're a top G or whatever, and you roll 20 grand a month on your credit card, have a limit of 40 grand, right? So there's that. Pay it off when it's due. Very simple. And don't go shopping around for credit. If your credit sucks and you start applying for, let's say, car loans, right? Like you want a new vehicle, you want to lease something like that. And you go to Honda, then you go to Acura, then you go to Hyundai, then you go to Toyota, and you go in all these places and they're all turning you down. Your credit score is going to go in the toilet, right? So there's that too. Don't move around a lot. Okay. So don't change your address. Don't update your address with your creditors, with your banks, with your credit card companies frequently. You'd be surprised. There's people that update their information 3 times a year. They don't like people like that. You're not trustworthy. You're not creditworthy because you're not stable. They want stable people that they can find, because if you don't pay, they need to know where you're at. And if you're the kind of person that moves around a lot, your credit worthiness starts to go down. Those would be the main ones, right? So pay it off in full, never charge more than 50%. I wouldn't use credit cards for cash advances or anything like that. That's never a good idea because they charge you interest from the day that you take the cash advance, not when your statement's due. So if there's 20 days between when you take the cash advance and when your statement's due, they generally charge you interest from day one, not when the statement's due. So keep that in mind too. Those would be the main ones. All right. What do we got here? We got Art in the house. Let's give it to Art. Art, what's up, buddy?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. It's actually my first time watching live, but cool. Recently I was in a relationship that lasted 6 years. I'm not going to get too much into it. I was one-itis pretty bad, and I ended up I ended up getting a couple credit cards, trying to save the relationship type deal.
You were trying to save a relationship with credit cards?
Well, it was more of what I was doing with the credit cards, like what I was buying, what I was trying to take her to do,
What was it, like buying her experiences, buy her love, buy her gifts?
Yeah, like kind of like just like that. And
so you tried to save the relationship by buying her stuff?
Yeah. Yes, I did.
That didn't work, obviously.
It did not.
Okay, so what happened next?
Yeah, I just spent a lot of money with the credit cards, and now I'm kind of paying the price for it, like literally. And I kind of wanted to ask, because I missed the beginning part of the show, like what kind of like strategy should I do? I'm like 11K right now, and I'm already, I got a son and I'm moving into a new place, and so money's already tight, and just trying to think of maybe some strategies or something I can get in my head that might help.
Your son's mother was a woman that you were in the 6-year relationship with?
Actually, no. My son is 9, so he was born a little bit before.
Okay, so the 6-year relationship was not your son's mother?
No.
So she's gone, but you have the debt from that relationship?
Yes. Yeah, and it's funny. I don't want to get into it, but yeah, basically that's it.
Okay. So what's the question here? Like, what's the best way to handle it?
Yeah, like I heard you mention bankruptcy, and I don't know much about it. I probably should be looking more into it.
Where do you live, in Canada or the US?
I live in California.
Okay. And it's only $11,000.
Yeah, it's like, well, and then I got my student loans, but those I'm still in school, so I'm not paying that right now, and kind of just focusing on my car because I can't lose that. So it's car, and then
Isn't it interesting that student loans are really the only debts that you can't go bankrupt on?
Yeah.
go to
It is
school,
interesting.
go get that education. But if you screw up, with your credit, you can never really go bankrupt on that stuff.
I know
Anyway,
some situations,
the way that it runs
even
here.
if you die, your family has to pay something.
No, unless they've co-signed for a loan, nobody else is liable once you die. Once you die, the debt's gone.
Okay.
It's like, there used to be debts that would show up in collection agencies, and you'd call them up and they'd be like, yeah, he died 2 years ago, and then all you really needed was a copy of the death certificate, and then they would just discharge the debt and it would just shut up. It would just go away, sort of thing. So as far as 11 grand, like, are you in school full time? You're a full time student, or do you work right now too?
No, I'm actually at work right now, but I work full time and I'm doing online school right now. So
do you make good money? Like, what's your income like?
It's okay for where I live, but I'm still struggling. I guess you could say struggling.
And what's your annual then?
It's like 50K.
Okay. So the first question that I would ask when I was dealing with this in my debt business is what you're doing right now paying down the balance? And if so, let's deal with that first. So is it getting paid down?
I've been paying minimum, basically, like you were saying earlier. I've been doing the minimum payments.
So you haven't seen it go down then?
No, I haven't seen it go down in quite a bit.
Okay, so that plan clearly doesn't work. What are the interest rates?
The biggest one, they're like 20, 26, 26, 20, 28. There's two of them that are the main ones.
Okay. So, I mean, guys, the first lesson here is don't try to buy your way out of a sinking relationship by buying her stuff or experiences, because now she's gone and he's dealing with the consequences of this, right? So as far as options go, 11 grand's not that much. If you can put more on it to pay it off within the next 6 to 12 months, I would do that, right? To go bankrupt for $11,000 wouldn't make a lot of sense, right? If you had no assets whatsoever, or if you had assets that were exempt from the bankruptcy, for example, like if your vehicle's old, it's worth a few $1,000s, it's probably going to be exempt from the bankruptcy, right? Like you'll be able to keep it. Tools, the trade, household items, stuff like that, you'll probably be able to keep all of it. In my view, I would get a consultation with a bankruptcy trustee. What do they call them in the States? A bankruptcy lawyer?
Yeah, I think so.
At least get a consultation to see what it would look like. And then I would also get a consultation with a debt settlement company. You live in California, freedomdebtrelief.com. Just jot that down. It's owned by my friend, Andrew Anheuser. He's a good guy. I've known him for years. We'd have long conversations about all kinds of stuff in the debt settlement world back when I was doing it, sort of stuff. And his business is solid. So I would recommend getting a quote from a bankruptcy trustee and from his debt settlement company, and then just weigh them out and look at which one looks best for your scenario. You don't have any assets. You don't have a house. You don't have any.
No, just my car right now.
You don't have any savings or anything like that?
No.
You don't have any investments?
No.
Okay. So those would be your two best options then.
All right.
Cool.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Next time, don't try to save a relationship by buying her heart. Okay. All right, bro. Take care. Never a good idea to do that. Yeah. All right. Let's give it to Aaron here. Let's see what he's got for us. Aaron, what's up, buddy?
Hey. Nice to meet you again.
Holy smokes. Look at that book collection on the shelf back there. Holy cow. All right.
Yeah, cars are pretty good too.
Yeah, good. Okay. What do you got for me tonight?
Yeah, so I was wondering, like, I've got a Capital One at Costco, and it's only like, I don't know, a couple grand there. And then on my other, like, MBNA, I've got like 20 plus grand credit limit. Like, what's going on over there?
Sorry, so on your MBNA credit card, you got a limit of 20 grand.
Yeah.
And what's the balance on it? Do you have anything owed on it?
Nothing.
Okay. And then the other one you said was what?
Capital One is through Costco.
Uh-huh.
And how come they only give me like $1,000 credit limit? And I've kind of like, I've called them about it, and they're like dragging their feet. Like, do you know what's the deal there?
Oh, it's a credit limit question. Okay, I see.
Yeah.
It's funny because I have a Costco card too, and it has a rather low limit, but I don't spend that much at Costco. Yeah, it's probably something that you could get extended. I mean, there's some pretty expensive shit you can buy at Costco,
Oh,
right? So you could charge that up, and I'm sure they would want that business. But I mean, if they're not going to give you an increase in the limit,
Yeah.
what are your options really?
What I did was actually I really complained to them. I was like, why are you only giving me this much?
Yeah.
So then
Are you carrying a balance on the Costco card?
nothing. Everything. I don't have
It's
any
paid off
debt.
in full. It's paid off in full.
Yeah, it's paid in full.
Yeah.
And so what I did, it's like, okay, if you guys aren't going to give me any credit, any more credit limits, so I just used my MBNA at Costco and rack it up there, and I'm not going to go bankrupt. So,
do you have the executive membership or the basic one? Like, which one do you have?
Executive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the limit on my card's about 2.5, maybe 3,000. It's not that high. I've got an executive membership too, but I was wondering if it maybe like, something to do with the tier, because they give you so much based on each tier. The other thing too is you also get the cash rebate at the end of the year, depending on how much you spend. So one of the things that you can do, so one of the things that I had to do at one time was I needed a credit card for a business, but they would only give me a $20,000 limit. And they were like, yeah, we'll give you more of a limit, but we need to see your books, your tax returns. We need to, get all this, that, and the other thing. I'm like, my accountant's not going to have that ready for a few months. Look, I've got cash in my account. You see the cash flow. So what I did instead of bothering them to increase the limit, Aaron, is I just paid off the balance every week. So, it would charge up. I'd pay it down. It would charge up a week later. I would pay. It was a bit of a pain in the ass, but I just set a reminder on my phone. Like every Friday, I would just go and chuck, money on the balance just to pay it down, so I didn't exceed more than 50% of the limit, like that rule I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
And eventually, once I got my taxes filed and my accountant did all my bookkeeping, then I could submit all the shit that they wanted to see, my financial statements and the records, and then they upped the limit. Then, that's just the reality of credit, man. The golden rule is he who has the gold makes the rules, and if you're asking for credit, you're basically asking them to give you access to more purchasing power. And if they don't feel like you can, responsibly use that purchasing power, then they generally don't give it away to you, which is fucking hilarious, because there's case after case after case of banks and credit card companies giving credit cards to 3-year-olds. Legitimately, like, they would send applications in the mail, and I've seen this over and over again, where parents would just be like, well, they sent it to my 4-year-old son, so I'm just going to fill it out and send it in and see what they do. And they would get credit cards with a limit of $2,000 or $3,000, right? So I think that some of the credit crunches that we've seen over the last, especially since 2008, have forced them to tighten up on their underwriting a little bit. That's probably just a Capital One policy, with their Costco product. But it is what it is, man. Like, if you need access to the extra credit, then just buy, pay down. That's what I would do.
Well, my parents did back in the day. This is in the early 90s. My mom would always come with checks.
Yeah.
her big like briefcase. And like,
yeah, but then you never get the cash back rebates, right? Like, I get a check every year from the card and from Costco for close to $1,000, for my spending. So it's like, you want those rebate points.
Oh yeah.
Right. That's also not taxable income too, by the way.
Right. Okay. Well, yeah, I just don't understand why the difference between Capital One and MBNA, why MBNA is giving me more credit limit versus
different.
Capital One. So.
Yeah, it's a different company, dude. It's totally different company. It's a different product line. You'll get, like, I know that there's credit issuers. Let's just use Capital One as an example. Let's say that Capital One issues credit for Best Buy, Home Depot, and Walmart, right? They're going to have different limits depending on what the retail outlet is and what they are willing to offer the customers there. And also, depending on what kind of customer you are. Like, if you're a contractor that goes to Home Depot and you need to buy, like, 10 grand worth of shit for a job, you need to have access to the credit. So they'll have different credit facilities depending on, what status or what sort of area you're in. That's just the way that they operate. They've always done it that way.
Okay. All right.
I
understand.
See you, buddy. All right, man. All right, let's do, what do we got? another 5 minutes. I usually wrap up at the 90-minute mark, so I'll take one more call here, and let's give it to Drizzo. I don't know. I'm totally messing that up, man. What do you got for me tonight?
No, it's Jay Rizzo.
Jay Rizzo.
Thanks,
okay.
Yeah, appreciate it.
All right.
The only thing I was hold on, I got echo. Hold on. Yeah, with the whole credit thing, I agree, keep it down, believe like 50, like 50%. So I do that. But the reason why I called in was I was gonna ask about your thoughts on. I was gonna ask on your thoughts on Anheuser Busch.
Yeah, we talked about this on Saturday on the General Show. Look, I mean, if you don't like what corporations are putting out there and how they're using marketing dollars, it's pretty clear to me that whoever ran this marketing campaign for what's his name, Dylan Mulvaney, whatever.
Yeah, it was Dylan Mulvaney.
Look,
or whatever. He's pretending to be trans and like a little girl running around a hotel. That's not right.
It's pretty clear, what his shtick is. He's just doing it, for the attention. But the whole notion that Anheuser-Busch or whoever the parent company is of Bud Light has basically hired idiots for their marketing team and then giving those idiots free reign to do whatever they want. Because in the past, like when Gillette did that thing with the whole toxic masculinity, remember their ad a few years ago, the razors?
Yeah.
They lost something like 15 to 20% of their quarterly profits because of that stupid stunt. And that would be a known fact for most big corporations. So I find it hard to believe that the leadership of Bud Light just said, oh yeah, let's go and do this because it seems like a good idea, when they have a fiduciary duty to increase shareholder value. They have a duty to their shareholders to return a profit. And if they allow, silly marketing decisions and strategies, if you go look at their last 20 years of advertising, it's all pretty women in bikinis with buff guys drinking beer on pickup trucks and fast cars and stuff like that's their entire marketing strategy that's worked. And then they go and pivot to this because I don't know if you know who the gal is that runs the marketing team, but she's all over the Twitter feeds now. There's a video of her talking about it, and they have her LinkedIn profile, and it's the she, her pronoun crowd, the alphabet crowd sort of thing. So they gave this gal free reign to a bunch of idiots in the marketing team, and they're going to pay for it. And the shareholders will probably pay for it too. That's my thoughts on it. It's just dumb. I don't think it's a good use of corporate resources. I certainly wouldn't invest any money in corporations that are all doing all this woke shit. They don't get money from people. People will vote with their wallet and not buy their stuff anymore. It's it's pretty simple.
I totally agree. That's why I canceled my Disney Plus. That's why I'm not doing Anheuser-Busch. That's why it's Miller is still a woke company, but the fact that they're not promoting a man who wants to be a woman, who is not representing women, and he even goes so far as to pretend he's a 6-year-old girl.
That's weird.
That's weird. Yeah, that's why I'm not doing it.
Yeah,
not doing it.
And at the end of the day, why would you even want to drink beer though? I mean, beer is laced with crap, and it acts as estrogen in your body anyway. It's not good for you. I mean, I get some people like the taste and they like, the buzz and sort of thing. But at the end of the day, you're giving these woke nut jobs your money to really poison yourself. That's my take on it.
I understand that.
Drink whiskey.
I really do. I really do. That's why I switch between beer and vodka, because vodka is more of a pure potato alcohol.
Yeah. Anyway, that's my take on it, man. You have yourself a good night, all right?
Appreciate it.
See you, buddy. All right, so let's wrap it up on that note. I want to thank you guys for watching the show. Again, do get on my email list because the School of Entrepreneurship opens up for enrollment. I'm going to open up on May 1st. You're going to get the offer with the discount, the early bird, paid in crypto. And I'll pump out some of the stuff that's in the course as it sort of comes up there. So if you're not on my email list, get on it. There's some cool shit on my email list too, by the way. The one that I'm getting the most feedback on, since it was brought up earlier on in the show, the guy that was talking about the Andrew Tate thing with the book, whatever. I did a private podcast with Tristan year or two ago, talking about his strategy around God mode and how he deals with relationships with multiple women and kids and all that sort of stuff. It's a private video on the email list. So when you opt in, that will be one of the emails that'll be served to you. Lots of useful stuff on my email list. I don't send out crap anyway. Guys, thanks for watching today. Want to express my gratitude and appreciation. Make sure you leave a like and a comment below. It's been an awesome show, and we'll be back next week with the next in the series, part 2. We still have to cover making bank and investing money, so we'll talk about those in the other shows. Have an amazing night. Peace.